My name is John Arthur. I teach 6th grade here at Meadowlark Elementary in Salt Lake City. My kids all call me Captain. I won't tell you why yet, but they just do. Take my word for it. And it was a long road ending up here in school. Ever since I started teaching, I've approached my job a little differently than other teachers. A lot of teachers think, I got to get my kids through all this information. I got to get them to the end of your test. Instead of asking myself, how much content can my kids consume in 1 year? I instead ask myself, how much content can my kids create? I like to look at my classroom as a workshop, as a laboratory, where kids are taking all of their best ideas and turning them into projects that actually mean something to all of them, that they can actually use in their lives to somehow make life better for themselves, their families, or their communities. I like to think of myself as a coach for my students. I coach them as they create their content, and more than anything else, my job is to help my students discover the power of their own voices.
Then the pro case is strong set of comic standards with free teachers and writing.
There's this quote by Robert Frost who said, "I am not a teacher, but an awakener." And that's how I think of myself in the classroom. I think of myself as somebody who sees the brilliance in children, who now has the responsibility of awakening these kids to the brilliance that's inside of them, and then helping them craft that brilliance into content that they can share with as wide an audience as possible. And only if they get the chance to not only discover but share their voices with other people do I feel like I've actually done my job. At the height of the pandemic, I was named Utah's Teacher of the Year. And one of the first emails I got was from one of my high school teachers who wrote out this long email just to say, "You have got to be kidding me. You became a teacher? There's no way. You did everything you could not to go to school while you were in high school." And I had to write back, "Yeah, I did. I became a teacher." And it was fun for me to explain to him why teachers like him and also Mrs. Anderson, for example, in middle school, inspired me in understanding that even when we're going through the toughest of times, teachers, if they embrace you and all that you bring in the classroom with you, not the grade that you're going to get, not the score that you're going to earn on that test, but if they appreciate you and your voice, then you want to go back to that place where you felt good after you have gone through the hard time that you had to survive. The fact that I'm a teacher today is also a surprise because for the longest time, I did not like school. In fact, I didn't trust any teacher that came before me because my earliest memory from school was picture day in the 1st grade. I came to school looking good. I had this little red bow tie on, little blazer, and I was looking nice, despite the immigrant hairdo my mother had given me, as all Asian immigrant children get. And I had one problem as I lined up with my class. I had to go pee really bad. And as a teacher, I found out this is a common thing. Kids often need to go to the restroom right when you need them to do something for you. And so I went to my teacher and I told her, teacher, I have to go pee." And I'll never forget it. My teacher turned to me and she said, "No, you don't. Get back in line." And I didn't know what else to do, so I got back in line. And as I stood there just stewing in line, I got angrier and angrier. And it wasn't until later that I think I realized why I was so angry. It wasn't that she didn't let me go to the bathroom. It was that she told me I didn't need to go to the bathroom. Like what I was telling her was wrong. Like I didn't know what was happening in my own body. So I went back to her. I mustered up the courage and I said, teacher, I bent my legs. I put my hands between my thighs. I tried to show her in every way I could, I really got to go pee. And again, she said, "No, you don't. Get back in line." And so I got back in line, and my father, who was a soldier, once told me, "If there's nothing else to do, just smile." And so that's what I did. I put a big smile on my face, and I peed my pants. I just stood there. And when you look at the picture, you can see, like, I took it like a champ. I got the big smile on my face. I'm still looking good, but my foot is just curled in a little bit. You can tell I'm uncomfortable. And this kid who's sitting next to me is leaning away from me. You could tell I didn't smell very good. And that's the memory that stands out in my mind when I think of school. I'm sure I must have had some memory at some point of kindergarten, but all of that got washed away by this one traumatic memory from first grade. And after that, I was incredibly quiet. And I liked my friends. There were things about school that I liked. I was also a very obedient child. And like I said, my mother's Korean and my father's a soldier. I was taught to like follow instructions at an early age. But I was always distrustful of teachers. I always thought in my moment of greatest need that they could turn on me. And I understood that she was stressed. I understand now as a teacher how hard that kind of moment can be where a kid comes to you. You need everyone going one way and that kid wants to go another. But at the same time, I would never do that to a child. And I also understand that no matter what, you always got to give kids the benefit of the doubt. If they're telling you something, if they found the courage to use their voice, to advocate for themselves, whether it's something big or something as simple as going to the bathroom, you have to listen to them. And if you have not created a space where they can come to you with what it is that they've got to share, then it doesn't matter how well they score on a test or what college they go to. They are leaving you a lesser human with less dignity than they walked in the door. I became a teacher despite what happened to me in first grade. I also became a teacher because I had amazing teachers who inspired me, who listened to me, who taught me how to discover my voice and how to use it in ways that were impressive and that made life better for everybody who I chose to advocate for. I entered the classroom and I thought that when I walked in, kids would hang on my every word. They would listen adoringly as I taught them all the things I needed to. And I found out my first year of teaching, that's not how it goes. And especially in the springtime, before you get into end of year testing, kids start testing you. They start testing your patience, they start testing your will and your resolve to carry on with the rules. And it was around that time, my first year of teaching, it was in April. I was coming into school early. I was coming in because I wanted to beat the line to our school's one copy machine. And I was listening to the news on the way in. I wasn't really paying attention because I was thinking about all the things I had to do, all the testing, all the test prep materials I had to get ready. And suddenly I started to pay attention to the news story, and it was about this ship, the MV Sewell, that had capsized off the coast of Korea. And my family's Korean. I understand the time difference. I understand how long ago it had to have been. It must have been like 14 hours that this ship had capsized. And we were now hearing about it here in the States. And it was long enough for certain details to come out. For example, the captain and his crew had told everybody on that boat, stay in your rooms, don't come out. And then the captain and his crew jumped off the ship and were picked up by these rescue boats that had floated around. And also you heard that 150 or so passengers used their critical thinking skills. They recognized this ship is sinking. We got to get off the boat. And they left their rooms and they jumped off the ship, and they also were rescued. The only people who died in that crash were these 250 high school students and then a scattering of other adults who, for the worst reasons, stayed in their room. They trusted what they were hearing from these authority figures. They were told to stay in their room, and even though they could look around and see what was going on, they decided, you know what? We're going to stay in our rooms. We're going to do as we're told. And they drowned. And all across Korea, these walls of photos started going up with gold ribbons pinned to the faces of these young people. And when I got to school, I was upset. I was angry because I felt like I had been part of the same project, the same mission that had led to those children dying. I had been throughout the school year pushing my students to follow certain rules. Third tile, single file, absolutely quiet in the hallway. We're coming in, we're getting to work right away. I know that something must have happened at home, but we don't have time to talk about these things right now. We got to get to work. There's more important things going on. We got end of year tests. We've got assignments that need to get done. And I immediately just started kicking myself. And when my students came to class, they could tell I was upset. And they asked me things like, oh, did you know them? I said, No, I know them. Not all Korean people know each other. It's ridiculous. Oh, are you mad because it's sad? Yeah, I'm mad because it's sad. It's sad that these young people died because no one taught them how to question authority, how to stand up for themselves in a situation where they were obviously been given bad orders, like bad advice. And of course, that would never happen to you guys, right? If you'd been in that situation, you would have jumped off the ship, right? And, oh yeah, heck yeah, totally. We would have gotten off the boat. If I looked at my kids, I knew immediately, no, they wouldn't. They would have gone down with the ship, just like everybody else. They would have listened to that captain, and that would have been the end for them. And from that moment on, I decided that every lesson that I taught the rest of my first year of teaching, we always have to put our objective up on the board. This is the learning objective. This is what you got to learn from this lesson. I made the learning objective for every lesson I taught after that empowerment, empowering their voices. I brought in all kinds of literature. I brought in the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley, in which the poet says, I am the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. I made them read that over and over and over again.